Hello, gorgeous. Hope you've been doing well. My name is Betha, and I do readings for strangers on the internet. Today in Capleo, we are going to go over what is the change that has just occurred? Who were you and who are you becoming? We're kind of getting out of retrograde energy at the time that I am posting this, so I kind of wanted to look into what lessons we may have learned within that retrograde and how it's changed us as people. Because I feel like sometimes we don't really see the change until we're reflecting on the change. With that being said, this is a general pick a card reading. So we're going to have to take what resonates and leave the rest with each of these groups, but stick around and see if any of this feels like it fits to your situation. I have three choices in front of you to hear today. We have the Moss Agate, the Tiger's Eye, or the Chevron Amethyst. And whichever one feels like it's kind of calling to you, whichever one catches your eye, or whichever one you feel like you have a connection with. If you don't connect with any of these, maybe pause the video, take a couple deep breaths, see if anything has changed. And if not, no harm, no foul. This reading might not be for you at this moment, or this reading might not be for you in general. I do have other readings for you to check out on my profile, see if any of those mash up. And if not, we'll hope to see you in the next one. But without further ado, the links to each of the piles will be in the description below, so let's just scroll on to whichever one you feel like resonates, and I'll see you in the readings. Hello, gorgeous! If you chose the Moss Agate, then this reading is going to be for you. I have a soul card here today. Soul lesson card, sorry. So we can get an idea of, like I said, we are kind of ending retrograde energy as I am starting this reading. The retrograde, quote unquote, is over, but we do have a shadow period 2 weeks after the retrograde. So within the soul card, we're going to find out what lesson we had learned throughout this time, or what lesson we are currently integrating within our life. And then I'll get a couple of tarot cards to see kind of where our energy was at before, and then where our energy is at now. With you guys choosing Moss Agate, I do feel like this group might be particularly connected to plants in some sort of way. Maybe you're a plant mom, plant dad, plant parent. Or maybe you just enjoy going outside quite a bit and finding flowers or walking through the trees, things of that sort. Remember, this is a collective reading, so please just take what resonates and leave the rest. It's not going to be for everyone with every particular detail I have. But I do think that you guys have been doing quite a bit of heart chakra healing at this time. I like see this image of a rose growing from a heart. So I do feel like maybe you feel like your heart space has been a little more open lately. Maybe there's been some sort of forgiveness that's been inspired, or some sort of change in your perspective. But let's get right into the soul lesson card. With you guys, you have freedom. I possess the power and the free will to create my own happiness. With this being so much blue here, I do also get maybe a little bit of throat chakra energy here. Maybe you guys have been speaking up for yourselves a little bit more, finding yourselves a little more firm in your boundaries, or just expressing yourself a lot easier. I feel like you guys might have learned some lessons in communication recently and how you interact with other people within your life. But I also just kind of get this idea that you guys have, I'm seeing like a cord being cut. So this might be with a specific person recently that you've kind of cut the cord on a connection. This could be a friend, a family member, a lover, or just kind of broken through some sort of illusion here that made you feel like you were stuck to someone or something. This could be like maybe changing your career path after years of thinking that you had to do a specific thing. Or like I said before, this could be cutting a connection that maybe you felt like you were tethered to, but it was kind of feeling more toxic and more draining than it was fulfilling within your life. I just get this idea that you guys feel like you have more control over your story and your life now. Something has happened recently to change your mind into thinking that you are no longer a victim to your circumstance, but you have a hand in actually manipulating things within your life to be the way that you want them to. You have control over how you want to see things progress and change within your reality. There might have been some sort of hard lesson here that made you realize that you have the energy to actually put forth change. I do think that it wasn't something that came super easy. It feels like something that maybe you knew for a while, but now you understand, if that makes sense. It's like the conscious idea that like, yeah, I have control over my life, but now you have that true understanding that the things that you do and the way you react, or the things that you put forth effort and action into, actually do inspire change in other venues of your life. I'm kind of getting this image of like dominoes falling, so I do feel like maybe at first it was this small thing that you changed within your life, whether it's like a habit or a little schedule change to your routine, and all of a sudden it had this, or is having this, grander domino effect that's going to change so many other things within your life. So taking this into account here as our kind of guiding what you learned through the retrograde, now I'm going to pull some Rider-Waite tarot cards to kind of see the energy of where you were at before, or before / sort of currently. I feel like this is the energy that's kind of leaving right now, if that makes sense. So we have the Four of Pentacles kind of lines up very well with this, because the Four of Pentacles gives me the energy of somebody who is holding on tightly to things. So somebody who sees things a specific way in a very rigid mindset, for lack of a better term. Somebody, like, you can see here just how much he's holding on to these pentacles and kind of making sure that nobody can come and take them away. It's, like I said, rigidity and controlling kind of energy. And I'm not saying that you were specifically controlling in circumstances, but I do think you had more of a mindset where, if I know how things are going to play out, if I have a hand in this, if I am aware of these things, it'll be a lot easier to manage. And maybe you would shy away from scenarios where you didn't feel like you had so much control because you were afraid of how the outcome would be. It's this needing to be more assured and more knowing of a situation before you walk into it, kind of thing. What else do we have here? All right. Justice in reverse. I think this goes back to the victim mentality we were talking about before. I do think that you guys fell into the mindset of, everything happens to me, and all of these shit things keep piling up. And it's like, what choice do I have other than to just take it as it is, and my life is just going to continue to suck for a long time? This mentality of, I always get the bad luck in a situation, or things will happen to me to tear me down and nothing really comes from it. It just felt like karma was not on your side for a while, because it felt like one thing after another, or that was kind of the mindset that you had going into things. It's kind of this like blindness to some of the miracles or some of the little magic moments in life, because you are focused on a lot of the it feels like things just weren't going your way for a while. It felt like maybe the grass was greener for other people, or other people get these little karmic blessings and I'm just left here with more lessons and more shit, and things just don't go my way, is the kind of mentality I see here. Let's get one more card. Okay, they want 3, so I guess we're getting 3 more. We have the Ace of Swords in reverse, the King of Pentacles, the Lovers in reverse, and Death in reverse. So I do think that maybe this is a lesson you've been learning for a while, or a lesson that you have learned before, but it was kind of like a reversion into old patterns and behaviors, and I do think we're kind of getting an understanding as to where this mindset came from these clarifier cards. So let's go back to this Four of Pentacles here. There was this idea that in order to feel this, you felt more secure, more stable, and more abundant the more you had control in certain situations. I'm getting this sense of like, if I have all of the knowledge of a situation here, or if I have familiarity in a situation, then I will know how to move forward. Then I will know that this is a safe place to be. But I think it's that mentality that kind of brought you into old situations that you would kind of, it almost feels like a reflecting lesson or reflecting energies here. Because I think it was just this gravitating towards a familiarity, in a sense. There's also this concept of like being both too frugal, and the word that came to mind was too adamant about certain things. So maybe there was this idea that you were holding on very tightly to certain things or not being very fluid in certain situations because it, like I said before, it was this control aspect of this is the way that things should be or this is the way that things should unfold. It was this limiting mindset of not being able to let go of what you know and kind of open your mind more to the possibility of other venues, other directions, other choices in certain scenarios, like a reversion to old coping mechanisms, one might say, in certain situations. It was this idea that if you held on to these things, if you kept control, this stubborn mindset would keep you safe and keep you secure. Like I said, this kind of just alludes to me to old coping mechanisms coming in to make you feel more safe in certain situations. And when we get here to the justice in reverse, like I said, this kind of victim mentality of things don't go my way, things don't happen for me, things are kind of just shit, it seems like everybody else's grass is greener. I think that aligns with the choices that you were making at the time here. And for some of you, this could be romantic choices of some sort, like karmic soulmate energy here. This could also be like friends, family, or like I said, this could be for any venue of your life, like career-wise or even new home opportunities, things like that. But it, like I said, it's a lot of the choices that you were making were stemming from this mentality of, well, if I have control or these old coping mechanisms keep me safe, this was kind of leading to this mentality of making these choices that don't really align with you anymore to set up to make it feel like karma was working against you, more or less. And I think that also stems here, that's also very prevalent here in this Ace of Swords in reverse, where a lot of what was keeping you stuck was this old mindset that it looks like you had kind of learned from before. Whatever the lesson in freedom is that's coming through here for you, this feels like a cycle that was kind of repeated until it made sense, more or less. Like I said, I feel like you guys went into things with the affirmations of, I have control over my life, or I have the power to change things. But it was more of the understanding of all these little things that you do to try to make the change actually having an effect in the long run, if that makes sense. Kind of echoing what I've been saying here, it feels like there was a lot of this idea that if you have control over situations, it would be a lot easier to flow through and you'd be a lot safer. So it was going back to these old patterns and coping mechanisms that you know don't serve you anymore and you've broken out of at a point, but going back to them produced this feeling of safety, this pseudo feeling of safety and familiarity that made you feel like you had control. But then, like I said, kind of pushed you to these choices that didn't really align with you, therefore gave you these outcomes that felt like the universe was punishing you more or less. But like I said, I'm here to say that this is all part of this mindset shift that we had to kind of go through here, which I'm kind of feeling like you guys went through within this retrograde of understanding that, oh, I've been here before. I've transformed out of this energy. So now it's about using the lesson that I've learned and these coping skills to propel me forward. I feel like this retrograde was kind of and I've echoed this sentence so many times, but this phrase so many times, but it was kind of like you went backwards here in order to recognize how to move forward. And I feel like maybe you guys were kind of going backwards before the retrograde too, if that makes sense. And it was kind of like the retrograde was this catalyst to change things. Also understanding if you're not watching this during a retrograde, this is a timeless reading. I just feel like you might have come across this during one of our retrogrades that we've had. If it resonates, Libra, Gemini, Taurus, and Scorpio are kind of prevalent through here. I'm also hearing Aries. This is coming out close to Aries season, so Aries season might be an interesting energy shift for you guys. But overall, this mindset that you had before, this energy just kind of feels like a depleted and on edge kind of defensive energy. Like, very quick to, like, I'm seeing like a very short fuse here and a lot of impatience. I'm also kind of seeing that maybe you guys, as much as there was like this desire for control here, kind of fell more into the crowd, if that makes sense. Kind of like what you surrounded yourself with was who you became to a degree, if that makes sense. But yeah, the big word that came to mind here was pseudo safety. So I do think that there was a lot more of a controlling energy here than we're about to see. But this is kind of what I'm getting for the past energy. So let's see if I can get the present energy on top of this past energy. Let's see what comes through here. You know what? We're going to clean this up real quick. I'll be right back. So now let's get to what is some of the present energy that you are possessing? What is some of the energy that you are stepping into currently? Now learning this lesson and integrating this lesson within your life. Let's see what comes through here. Okay. Nine of Wands upright. It's less of needing to control now other things and other scenarios and other people, and more of self-control is kind of what's coming through with this. It's stricter boundaries as the obvious thing that we're seeing here, but I'm also seeing there's more security within it. It feels like you've learned some sort of lesson within this retrograde of understanding that self-control is key. And once you no longer become a victim to your impulses or quote unquote the easy way out, maybe some of you guys have that people pleaser energy where you would kind of like allow other people to take the reins even if it didn't feel right to you before. But now you're kind of stepping into this more self-assuredness. Like, even in the way that you can see her kind of on this card. She knows she's that bitch. You know what I mean? She's not going to falter her shit for anybody. Let's see what else kind of comes through here. I think that's already a huge reflection of that need to control energy that we saw before. Where before he was kind of more scared holding on to his coin, afraid of it, like, escaping him. She's not really holding on to anything but this one wand. And it doesn't even seem like she's holding on too tightly to it. She's not afraid of letting it go. She knows that the only thing she has to be cautious of and in control of is herself. Because everything else will either show how it is and let you see what it is in reality if it's trying to give you some sort of delusion. Or it just will... I'm hearing it will not win. So maybe there was something before that you were being very cautious of because you were afraid it was going to undermine you, overtake you. I'm kind of getting this like paranoid energy about maybe specific situations or people. And now there's this more assuredness that it's like, as long as I have control of myself, who cares about the outcome? This kind of like idea that resilience is born from you being able to make it out of shit situations rather than whether or not you're put in a shit situation, if that makes sense. Let's see what else comes through here. Hierophant in reverse. I'm just going to take a couple more cards and like read it as is. High Priestess in reverse. Get some clarifiers here. Six of Wands in reverse. Page of Cups in reverse. And the Three of Cups in reverse. Starting off with this Nine of Wands being clarified by the Six of Wands in reverse, I feel like maybe before... It's also funny to me that this 6 has now become a 9. So I feel like where there might have been this need to perform for other people, it's almost like you have found this self-esteem that makes you realize your worth whether or not you have the crowd in front of you. I find it funny that it's turned into a 9 from a 6. Because 6 to me is like love, obsession energy. And then the 9 is like this completion energy. So it feels like maybe, like I said before, I talked a little bit about some people-pleasing energy here. It feels like maybe before you were kind of performing for others, trying to show them the outcome or the kind of person that you thought they wanted from you, but now you're doing it for you. You're not performing for a stage. You are performing because that's how you feel and that's what you want to put out into the world. Creation for the sake of creation, not creation for the sake of being shown. And this can also be applied to like your certain patterns, behaviors, and the way that you show yourself to the world. You know, not just like certain things you're trying to show off. With the Hierophant in reverse being clarified by the Page of Cups in reverse, I feel like the Hierophant is telling me that you are breaking out of this tradition and this way that things have always been. This could be some sort of familial tradition of sorts. This could be traditional presentation of who you are as a person. For some of you, I think gender comes to mind. Or this could be a traditional way of doing things within your job or certain things of that. But there's something here that most people adhere to and conform to in order to make it their way up the ladder, so to speak. But you are doing what feels right to you and following your own compass. And with the Page of Cups in reverse here, to me, that's telling me that you are breaking out of illusions by doing this. I think it goes back to this concept of freedom and being able to create your own life and your own happiness, in the sense that you are not in this delusion that you have to do things a certain way anymore. That you have to adhere to ways, that you would have to adhere to the way that things have been. An example is like, maybe you wanted to be some sort of a writer, so to speak, and you wanted to get your work published. And a lot of people say, well, you should go get an agent, you should go to a publishing agency, but maybe you kind of shook that up and you realized, well, that's not going to vibe with what I have here. Maybe I should just self-publish. And you end up going that route, and you find out that you really do enjoy marketing, and you enjoy all of the advertising and everything that comes with it. So you self-publish and you self-market, you self-advertise, and it goes even better than it would have if you had adhered to an agent. Like I said, just an example. I'm not saying that that's your situation. But it's this idea that you've broken out of the traditional way of doing something. And from that, it's kind of freed you from the delusions that other people might fall to in thinking that they have to do things a specific way or they have to live their life in a specific route. With the High Priestess in reverse being clarified by the Three of Cups in reverse, I think it just warns about who you surround yourself with. Because I think earlier we kind of talked about falling victim to becoming what you surround yourself with. That maybe certain circles or certain people within your life might be keeping you back in these old patterns and behaviors. Not consciously. I'm not saying that they're inherently trying to devil work their way through you and ruin your life. But I do think that the more that you overindulge in specific venues or with specific people within your life, maybe going back and having more strict boundaries in some areas, it kind of, excuse me, it kind of blocks your intuition, so to speak. I think there is a caution here about overindulgence in specific areas of your life. But I think there's also this ask that if you feel like your intuition is feeling a little bit more blocked or you're a little confused on how to move forward on certain things, maybe taking that extra time away from specific people or scenarios to kind of come back to yourself. Almost like this like hermit energy, if that makes sense. I also think that this is a call to kind of look at your social circles and understand that while we have, obviously having boundaries helps with everything and making sure that we are strong within our own energy, we have that self-esteem not to be shaken up by others, but also asking you to kind of look into your social circle a bit and see the reality of things, if that makes sense. Obviously not like picking and prodding and, you know, being judgy over the people that we've surrounded ourselves with, but truly asking yourself, like, am I being surrounded by people who want to progress in life? Am I being surrounded by people who keep me stuck? Or am I surrounding myself with people that I see things that I admire and want to become within myself? if that makes sense. But like I said, overall, I am seeing, back to this freedom card, more of this energy of having control over your life because you have control over nothing, if that makes sense. This easier flowing, this, I do feel a bit of rigidness yet, so maybe it's learning at this point how to flow with things more, because we have that old mindset of, I need to know what's going on in a situation in order to have control. But I do feel a lot more personal security and self-esteem. I feel you guys kind of breaking tradition here, breaking out of delusion and illusion, and kind of seeing things as they are now. Because you've kicked some sort of temptation, some sort of vice, maybe some sort of influence within your life. I also caution that maybe there is a little bit of paranoia here. Maybe try not to see things. This is for some of you guys. I'm not saying this is for all of you, but trying not to see things as like people are out to get me. Because I do think that you are strong enough and secure enough within yourself to be all right, and I do think that you are divinely protected in this group. But I think there's this sense of, back like I said before, I think there's a forgiveness here, and it's forgiving people for who they are, if that makes sense. Or like I said, we're kind of breaking out of these delusions here, so you might see certain people in a different light than you did before. And it's kind of having the grace to see someone or something as it is, and recognizing in that moment whether or not it's for you. Because whether or not it's for you does not make it bad or good. It just means that it's either going to mesh with you or it's not going to mesh with you. And it's totally okay if something doesn't mesh with you to remove yourself from a situation or say goodbye to it. And there might be a grieving process to follow, and it might be hard to move on from certain situations or people. But I do think that what's going to come in is going to be more aligned with you. It's just about, like I said, seeing things as they are and then adjusting accordingly from there. I don't think you have to be worried and checking your shoulder. And if you do feel that way about certain people within your life, then maybe these are not the people to keep within your life as is, right? I don't think that it's not healthy to have the mindset that inherently people are around to sabotage you and take you off of your throne. You know, the idea of resilience is being able to pick yourself up no matter the situation that you're in. And I think you're starting to learn that it's not about how other people try to sabotage you, so to speak, but more of how do you handle yourself when you are put in that kind of energy, in that kind of situation. Like I said, there's a bit of a warning about overindulgence here, or certain drama in a friend group, maybe a third-party situation romantically. And you're just being asked to see it with a clear eye. And I'm also hearing that you might not know the full story yet with that. So it's this concept of letting things unfold because the truth always comes out. And I think, like I said, that kind of goes with this new flowing energy that we're finding. Rather than seeking out the truth, letting the truth unsurface itself. But put the paranoia to rest. You don't have to be on guard consistently, you know, just as long as you are adhering to your boundaries, you are standing strong and secure within yourself, it's going to be fine. You know, if you feel like you need to be a little more wary in a specific scenario, do as you please and do as feels right. But you don't have to be like on guard the entire time. Like I said, the truth is going to come out either way. Just kind of let it unfold. You don't need to put your hand in the cookie jar. There's too many hands in there already. Anyway, I think that's kind of the message here. Congratulations on the mindset shift and breaking yourself out of this victim mentality. I do see a lot of strength that's come from this. I think the next step here is to just continue to flow with things. Break tradition. Do what feels right to you, not what's been written before. The rest is still unwritten. Feel the rain on your skin. Anyway. Yeah. The rest is still unwritten here, love. You have quite a bit of pages to go through and quite a bit more story to have a hand in kind of letting unfold. I hope this message helped and was a little bit of fun for you. I hope you can kind of recognize and give yourself credit for some of the growth that we're seeing here. It's not easy, and I think that you guys are taking it beautifully. Whether or not it feels gracefully when you're reflecting on it or going through it, you definitely have more of a sureness to yourself and more power from it. So I think that's what makes it a graceful healing. Anyway, if nothing else, that's kind of the message I have for you today. If you would like to book a personal reading with me, please check out the link in the description below. I do have a link to my website there, and I would love to work with you. Love and light, my friend. Thank you for staying. Hello, gorgeous. If you chose the Tiger's Eye, then this pile is going to be for you. We are trying to get an understanding of what lesson we have currently learned and how that kind of reflects on the person that we were versus the person that we are now. I want to be able to help show you some of that change if you're not kind of seeing it within yourself right now. At the time that I'm posting it, this has been the end of the retrograde that we had in like March, but retrograde energy kind of holds on like about 2 weeks after it truly ends, 2 weeks before it begins. So we're probably still a little bit in that energy if you're watching this at the time of posting. Otherwise, I do think this is kind of a timeless reading, so might not have anything to do with retrogrades in general. Or maybe it's a different retrograde at the time that you're seeing this. Ooh, spooky. Anyway, getting right into it, we are checking out kind of this energy of what lesson we have learned, the person that we were kind of going through and before this lesson, and the person that we've become afterwards, because I do think we need to celebrate our growth here, and sometimes we can't see it unless somebody else points us to it. With the Tiger's Eye being here, I'm thinking that this has something to do with your self-esteem and worth that we've been building. Something about unlocking more of your power and producing more of who you truly are from it. Kind of stepping more into your energy and being secure with it. Let's get into the soul lesson card here that we might have learned within this time. You guys got success. I know that there is no greater goal than to love. And I also can't help but notice how much yellow is surrounding this here. So it does lead me more to that like solar plexus energy we were talking about with the Tiger's Eye, where it's worth, self-esteem, confidence. But with this card, I'm kind of getting an idea that your priorities are changing, so to speak. It feels like maybe you guys were on the grind or the chase for some sort of produced outcome, and now you're kind of a little bit more flowing with things. You kind of recognize more of the worth in the things that are surrounding you already. No longer really in that go, 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 I need to get it energy, or I need to do everything I can to produce a specific outcome. But more of this accepting of how things are and being able to lead with an open heart and with love. We're going to get more of an understanding that as we get into the tarot cards here. I'm going to break out the Rider-Waite deck, and we're going to get an idea of what your energy was before this change, before this lesson kind of took place within your life. All right, already with 3 cards here. So we have the Devil in reverse, the 4 of Wands in reverse, and the 7 of Cups in reverse. Now let's get some clarifier cards here. I'll take these. 2 of Pentacles in reverse, the 7 of Swords in reverse, and the 2 of Swords right under the 7 of Cups in reverse there. This is funny to me. We'll get to that in a second. But starting with the Devil in reverse, clarified by the 2 of Pentacles in reverse here, I do think that you guys, for a while, kind of had an understanding of something that was keeping you chained up, so to speak. Something that you felt like you were tethered to, maybe someone you felt like you were tethered to. And I think that this was part of that gunning for a specific outcome kind of energy, doing everything in your power to ensure that this would come into your life, rather than living with your full truth, if that makes sense. I think that it felt like you were juggling quite a bit. It felt very chaotic. Almost like, I feel like some of you guys maybe were playing up a specific role, if that makes sense. Not really living your truth, but kind of living what you thought you needed to be in order to, like, an example that comes to mind is maybe you are more of a free spirit in the way that you express yourself, in the way that you dress, in the way that you present yourself. Maybe you're a little bit more laid back, but it's maybe you wanted some sort of managerial position or corporate position, and you felt like you had to take on this energy of somebody that you would see in corporate, if that makes sense. And it felt like you were juggling this concept of who you wanted to be perceived as versus who you really were. It feels like either a mindset or maybe a specific person or people within your circle were kind of keeping you from the things that you felt were truly important to you. This is partially, with all this yellow, is making me think maybe it was also a self-esteem thing, where it was almost like, this thing feels like it's out of my reach, I don't deserve said thing, or I am not good enough for said thing. Where I think part of this almost playing a character kind of came into place here. Where it was like trying to present as something that was worthy of what you desire. Going back to that example of like trying to get a corporate job, dressing and acting ways that didn't feel like you. I mean, granted, there are specific ways that we need to act at work just because of respect and it's a work environment, correct? But this feels like almost not being in your truth because you're trying to be something that you think is worthy of what you want here. Like I said, there's quite a bit of like playing a role that comes into here. And I think that kind of also created some imposter syndrome where your actions or your impulses were not aligning with who you truly are. And I'm seeing that it kind of, because you were in this energy of not really living in your truth and not really doing things as it felt just to you, because you felt like you were tethered to be the specific person in order to create a specific outcome, there's this confusion that comes with all of these endless options that are presented to you. And I think maybe in the past you have made some choices that didn't really align with what you wanted because you didn't think that you could get much better of an outcome. There's this confusion with the choices that you've made where it's, I don't know if this is right or wrong for me. And I think part of that is because you were looking for what you thought should be for you rather than what is meant for you, if that makes sense. Like, say you are in dating and you're part of, and this is part of the corporate story we're going with here. Say you were looking for a partner that would kind of line up with the new reality that you're trying to step into in this energy. Because you weren't being true and expressing your energy, you're trying to play this corporate Mongol, very studious, upright business person. The choices in love felt like you were trying to choose somebody that kind of fit to that energy, if that makes sense. Or the choices being presented to you in love were kind of reflective of that energy. Because I do think our reality reflects our inner world. So it was kind of like, well, if you're pretending to be this person, well, then you're going to get options that reflect the person that you're pretending to be. Are you following me? So what I'm kind of seeing here is there's this call to have self-esteem for the person that you truly are rather than the person that you wanted to pretend to be or present to be because you thought that was right. And then expressing yourself accordingly. There's this idea of maybe there were other people in your circle as well that have kind of put that influence on you by telling you, well, I think that you're this person, or maybe you were trying to appease them by presenting a specific way. Or maybe, like I said, they were kind of just like muddling, whispering things in your ear that kind of muddled your perspective of self, so to speak. But I'm getting a lot of like indecisiveness and indecision that kind of plagued this group. A lot of who should I be, what should I be doing, rather than kind of following this inner compass. And I think that's kind of where we're getting this idea that there is no greater goal than to love. Because, yeah, maybe you wanted to be this corporate person because this is what your parents had set for you. This is what your parents saw for you for your future, or your friends saw for you, or what have you. But then you started to realize that this doesn't feel right to me. This doesn't align with the person that I know that I truly am inside. Does that make sense? This idea of performance because of what other people expected from you in the past. So I'm going to clean up this past energy real quick, and then we're going to get into what our present energy and who we're stepping into kind of is after integrating this lesson that we've learned. Okay, now let's get an idea of who we are stepping into and who we've become now that we've learned this lesson, that there is no greater goal than to love. Yeah, I like I said, with that lesson, I'm kind of getting this idea of like what you thought before was success is no longer your idea of success. Maybe with that whole corporate job scenario, it was what you were expected to do because your family and friends thought that is what you were supposed to do. So you kind of embodied that. You thought that success came from monetary, so you were gunning for the monetary. But now you're starting to see what feels like success to you rather than what feels like success to the people that are around you, if that makes sense. Six of Swords in reverse. Queen of Pentacles. Two of Swords in reverse. Well, now our Two of Swords is in reverse rather than upright. That's interesting. I think a lot of the indecisiveness from before also came from playing this character too, so to speak. Like it was more of you were trying to make decisions out of the idea of who you should be or what you should be doing rather than what felt right to you. Tower in reverse. The World in reverse. And Ten of Wands in reverse. So where the Six of Swords upright and the Tower upright would kind of spark me to think that there's some sort of transformation going on and moving away from something, in reverse it kind of feels like you're coming back to something. It feels more like, instead of destruction, this energy feels like a rebuilding of sorts. It's, with the Queen of Pentacles being clarified by the World in reverse, it feels like this growing out of a cycle, so to speak. I'm hearing coming home. So it kind of feels like you are getting to know yourself over again, if that makes sense. Maybe you've been doing a lot of reconnecting with your inner child recently and the dreams that you had as a kid or the things that you enjoyed doing. It feels like you are truly embodying the person that you've wanted to be and the person that you are, rather than the person that you needed to be for survival or the person that other people expected from you. Rather than chasing this grandiose idea and this image of who you should be in life, you're coming back to this understanding of the power in who you truly are. There's more security than there was before here. Like I said, there's more of a self-esteem that is being built, this unlocking of your power, this confidence. And I think the main advice that's coming through here, because the Two of Swords being in reverse now, feels like maybe you have more questions and answers in certain venues. The more that you're getting to know yourself and the more you're getting to know who you truly are rather than playing this role as you have been before, it feels like the indecision has now become confusion, if that makes sense. And I think in moments where you are confused about what the answer is or what direction to go, you need to come back to yourself, is the answer here. Which is easier said than done, especially if you've been playing a certain role for survival for so long. But there's this idea of releasing what's best for everyone and starting to focus on what's best for you. If you do have times where you're confused on whether or not to move forward with something or what decision to make, releasing the burdens that other people have placed on you and the responsibilities that other people think are more important here. I think one thing that's going to help you out is to actually just sit down with yourself and make a list of the things that you find particularly most important to you. Like if you think that you should write down your friends, your family, your career, but that doesn't align with you, then truly like sit down and ask yourself, what are the things that are most important to me? Not what other people expect me to be, not what would sound great on paper. What is the most important thing? Hell, it could just be like a Squishmallow. Maybe one of your Squishmallows or your Squishmallow collection is one of the most important things to you. You know, that's not for other people to see, read, need to understand, or know. No matter how silly it is or how stupid it seems, I think it would help you to write a list of your priorities and the things that you want to see change within your life. like I said, for some of you, it might have felt like you were gunning for financial, for like a spark in your finances, that you wanted a lot of money, but you're starting to realize that maybe money is not as important to you as it is to other people. Well, then that's not going to be on your list of things that are most important to you, is it? There's this concept of, like I said before, getting to know yourself again and really getting to appreciate life through the lens of the real you rather than the you that you have created for other people's benefit. This coming back home to yourself, the simple way that I can say to kind of get to know yourself better is treat yourself like you would a new friend or a new lover. Get to know yourself from that aspect. Take yourself out to dinner. Have conversations with yourself. Do activities where you are more present with yourself. You know what I mean? Rather than sitting down and eating dinner with a TV in front of you. Maybe that's sitting down, having dinner, appreciating the meal as it is, and having a conversation with yourself. Or instead of just, painting with music in the background or TV in the background to zone out to, painting and once again having a conversation with yourself. It's instead of doing things through the and I think that a lot of you guys have been implementing this more. Instead of doing things just to get them done, it's being a part of the experience, adding this mindfulness aspect to it so you can really appreciate the moment and really enjoy it for what it is. Because you might find out if you sit there and you're eating dinner and you're mindfully eating dinner rather than having something in the background, that, oh, well, I just found out I really don't like this specific food because now that I'm chewing on it, eating it, and paying attention to it, I'm not enjoying the texture. I'm not enjoying the flavor. Maybe I find something else to replace this with the next time I make this meal. It's, like I said, it feels like you guys are being more mindful because you're trying to honor who you truly are and how you truly feel, rather than going through this survival aspect of, well, I have to do this and I have to be this way in order to appease other people or in order to survive this specific situation. There's also this call to, with this mindfulness energy, just like, I feel like you're noticing things more, or you are being asked to pay more attention to certain things. Maybe this group has kind of been scatterbrained in the past because they're very good at going through the motions of things without putting much thought into it. But now you're being asked to apply that extra layer of mindfulness to truly, each step of the way, feel it out. I think this is going to make you a little more connected with some of your psychic or spiritual abilities here if you subscribe to that. I'm getting that this group might be a clairsentient group. Do some research at that at your will if you are interested. But overall, I'm just getting this deeper sense of security because of this self-love that you are unlocking. That I'm getting this idea that the more that you get to know yourself, the more that you treat yourself like a partner and a friend rather than something to survive through, the more that you are going to see success and rewards reaped within your life because you are honoring your truth. There's also a little bit here about moving your body more. So some of you guys might have just started with a gym membership or might be going outside a little bit more, might be doing more physical activity. And if not, that might be a call to add more physical activity within your life. But I'm also getting that, if there's something that you've wanted to experience for a while, you should give yourself the chance to experience it. Take yourself out on dates. You know what I mean? If you want to learn how to dance, go to a dancing class. Have fun with that. Go to a new coffee shop. Try a new coffee. See if you enjoy it. There's this idea of getting to know yourself again. And I think part of that, like I said, has some inner child work that I'm seeing here where you are going back to your childhood and asking yourself, what did I enjoy or what did I want to experience, and kind of implementing that into the now. But there's also this idea of, if something sparks your interest, go after it. As yourself now, as the you that you want to present to this world. there's this concept of unlocking more love and abundance within your life, the more that you enjoy it and the more that you feel secure within yourself. I think it's going to provide you with new experiences coming up and new opportunities. But the question here is whether or not you're going to show up as yourself rather than who you think you should be in certain scenarios, right? Because I think that part of the reason that you've kind of been afraid is because you end up sparking a lot of change, and a lot of people are either going to take that or leave it. Some people don't want to change where they're at, which is fine, but we can't control how other people perceive us or how other people are going to react to certain ways that we express ourselves. But sometimes it will trigger people if they are stuck in their same scenarios and they don't want to change or they don't want to try new things. That's not on you. What is on you is making sure that you are honoring yourself and you are showing up as yourself to make sure that you are bringing in the proper situations and opportunities that you want to bring in. I think the more that, like I said, you let go of these burdens that feel like they're not important to you, but have been burdened onto you because they're important to other people, the easier it is to make decisions here and to see things as they are, rather than to fall into this bit of maybe freeze state indecisiveness. But yeah, I think the main thing here is that you guys are coming home to yourself. You're getting to know yourself on this deeper level, and I'm seeing a lot of growth, stability, and beauty here. Continue to nurture yourself, take care of yourself, and do things that feel right, not what you should do. Because we could should ourselves into oblivion, but that doesn't mean that it's going to feel good in the long run. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying given to impulses and like, oh, it's gonna feel good if I go on a 3-week bender. But I am saying that, you know, if your friend says that you should invest in this venue, but that doesn't feel right to you, then invest in something that does feel right to you. You know, you're not living for other people. This is your one life to live. Do it for you. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it that I have for the message here today. I hope this helped. If you are interested in booking a personal reading with me, please check out the link in the description below. Check out my website. I would love to work with you. But if nothing else, have a fantastic and beautiful day, love. You deserve it. Hello, gorgeous, and if you chose the Chevron Amethyst, then this is going to be for you. For this reading today, we are getting into the idea of what lesson was learned currently and what was the energy before versus who we are stepping into now, to kind of give ourselves a little bit of grace and congratulations for how far we've come, because I think sometimes it's a lot easier to, excuse me, it's a lot easier to see the progression in these things within ourselves when somebody else points it out to us. So, starting off here with this Chevron Amethyst, I'm kind of getting this sense of your intuition being heightened or your spiritual psychic abilities being heightened. You guys might have also been particularly having some intense dreams as of recent, maybe more metaphoric to kind of give you an idea of your inner world, or maybe more prophetic to kind of give you an idea of what's coming or what has come. But I'm also getting a sense of maybe some of you guys struggle with depression or anxiety or OCD. Take that as it resonates. You know, not everything it's a collective message, so take what resonates and leave the rest. But it's also like my 3rd or 4th time recording for this group, so I'm also getting this sense that this lesson has taken quite a few tries to be fully integrated within your life. This is something that's kind of been, you've seen it pop up before and you've kind of struggled through it, if that makes sense. But let's look into, at the time that I'm recording this, at the time that this is being posted, this is kind of the end of a retrograde energy, kind of within that 2-week period of like the come down from the retrograde energy. So if you are watching this during a retrograde, I do feel like this was kind of very intense for you guys, lessons wise, and what you've learned through it. But the soul lesson card you got here was happiness. And I will say right away, I am seeing quite a few dolphins here, quite a few waves. I do think this was more of an emotionally tumultuous experience that you kind of went through. A lot of releasing here. You guys might have been called to eat more seaweed or kelp or something recently. I would take that as it resonates, and maybe it's a call to get more of that in your diet. Maybe it's some sushi time. And some of you guys might be really into surfing or really connected with water in some way or another. And I would say that if you have a chance to, go play mermaids for a while. But the soul lesson card I have here for you is happiness. I am aware that being happy means that I'm on the right path. And I think it's simply as that is maybe you guys have struggled a lot to find joy within your life. Especially if you are plagued with these disorders like depression, anxiety, OCD. And I think this has been a call, and you've kind of been implementing more play energy and more fun energy within your life, and you're starting to recognize that your inner compass is pointing you towards things that are going to bring more fulfillment and joy within your everyday life. Even if it's a struggle to get there, even if it's a struggle to break out of these old mindsets, to bring in this energy of what does serve us, I think that you are finding more joy and content within the life that you have. So I want to take out some tarot cards here to get an idea of what the energy was before integrating this lesson within our life. So let's see what comes out. So we'll start here with the King of Cups, Five of Swords in reverse, the Moon, we'll say upright, and then we'll take these back. But we have the Page of Swords in reverse, the Star in reverse, and ending with the Nine of Cups here. So starting with this reading with the King of Cups clarified by the Page of Swords in reverse, I do think that you are a group that feels very deeply, and I'm also hearing feels very intuitively. So you guys might have always been very connected with your emotions, but it might have felt overwhelming at times. Like going back to these waves that we're seeing here, kind of like feeling like you're being pulled under by the experience, if that makes sense. And I see that it was kind of a struggle for you guys to learn. In the past, you struggled with communicating how you were feeling, not just to others, but a lot of times within yourself. And this could have been because of different modes of escapism or trying to ignore or suppress these feelings. And it feels like they felt so intense that rather than sitting with them, it was easier to try to avoid them. Or because when it did feel like you were sitting with them, they felt like they were overtaking you. And there was almost this sense, too, of like feeling so deeply, being so vulnerable as a weakness kind of perspective I'm seeing here. Like maybe you felt crazy or felt too intense if you were feeling a certain way. So you weren't able to communicate that properly with others because you were having trouble communicating it with yourself. Seeing emotions as something to go through or to hide rather than something that is trying to give you a message, if that makes sense. I'm seeing here some sort of intense conflict that kind of, and it feels with them being swords here, it feels like this internal conflict that kind of just gave you this loss of hope, this feeling of unworthiness, or this feeling that these things that you've wanted and worked towards would not happen. I'm also seeing kind of like conflict maybe within an inner circle of sorts, maybe within friends or family, that kind of led you to this lost feeling in the fact that, in a sense that if you saw these people as your chosen family, it felt like you were losing manifestations in a way. It's almost like a tower energy that I'm kind of seeing here, where it's like things are falling apart, life feels like it's falling apart. I'm also getting this sense of mixing up fear and intuition with this ego mindset. This concept of not being able to let go of things that you've brought within your life before out of fear, even if intuition was trying to help guard you and guide you to let go of these things. I'm almost getting this idea, maybe for some of you guys it was a little bit of codependence here, or on the verse end of it, maybe it was a little bit of too much independence, where it was staying stuck in your way, in the way that things are emotionally, when it comes to opening up to other people, or, having these honest communication with others. In the codependency aspect, if you resonate with that, maybe it's holding on to people that don't serve you just because it feels more comfortable to have the people around in the independence mindset. Maybe it's not breaking over that barrier and having a true emotional connection with people. And I think it can kind of work in tandem for some of you guys where it's holding on to these people that you didn't have to have a true, like, breaking down your walls kind of vulnerable connection with. I'm seeing that it was almost like you were kind of staying still, stuck in your ways with something. Something that if you would break out of it, it would inspire some sort of fear. So fear kept you stuck in this specific way of being. But your intuition had been trying to guide you out of it. And I'm seeing like this distressed look on the moon's face here. That's kind of telling me that in order to bring in the things that you truly desired, it would be breaking out of this by sitting with these uncomfortable feelings. And I think that's something that if you look here, he's kind of like, in the way this is set up, it's almost like he's sitting, looking forward, crossing his arms, not listening to the moon here. So it's one of those things where you were very in your ways, not wanting to make this change, though it was very prevalent within your life. Like I said, I'm seeing you guys as a very, very strong and very emotionally self-regulated, but it was one of those things where you had to almost revert to these suppression behaviors in order to understand just how important your emotions are, if that makes sense. I'm seeing here this giving up due to the fact that these anxieties had kind of plagued you. Like there was a lot of chaos going on within your mind. And this inability to control your thoughts, so to speak. This idea that you had to have complete control over yourself before you put yourself out in the world or before you were worthy of your manifestations. This feels like some sort of like almost martyrism in the way that you were kind of looking at things here, where it's like, I cannot let people see me as the beast because I'm just going to destroy everything kind of mentality, if that's making sense. It's kind of like like a hyperbolic example of what I'm seeing here, where it's like, if you weren't in a specific mindset or you weren't presenting a specific way, you wouldn't allow yourself to enjoy things, so to speak. It was almost like, I'm almost getting this energy of like working so hard on yourself that you don't leave any room to actually live. Just kind of this constant reaping and rebirth of trying to destroy everything within you that you don't think aligns with this better version of yourself that you see. And the one little bit that I want to add in here for advice is maybe looking at things from a perspective of what is my favorite version of myself rather than what is the best version of myself, if that makes sense. Because I do think sometimes when we're chasing this best version of ourselves, we get this concept of what we think would be the right version to be or the right way to behave when there is no right or wrong way to behave. You know, if somebody is talking shit on you or saying something to your face, you can raise up your head, turn the other cheek and ignore it, but you can also dish it right back. There's no right or wrong way to handle a scenario like that. It's just about what consequences are you willing to face when that situation happens. Because you could turn the other cheek thinking it's the right thing, but that person can also continue to shove their bullshit at you. Whereas maybe if you clap back, you might inspire some sort of conflict, or it might shut them up. You know, I think there's this idealism that kind of happened with this group, especially when it comes to themselves, where you were trying to embody something rather than accepting yourself as you are and moving forward accordingly, which kind of led to a lot of this anxious thinking, a lot of this spiritual pressure on yourself, so to speak. And instead, it's working through, like what I'm seeing for a lot of you guys is just a lot of anxious or depressed mindset, a little bit of paranoia, where you're constantly checking over your shoulder to make sure that you're making the right decision because you don't want the wrong outcome. Listen to your emotions because they are messengers when they're trying to tell you something. That's not you being completely on the wrong. It's like when you're feeling upset or sad, that's not life saying you're on the wrong path, you're going to suffer now. That's your body and your soul saying, hey, something doesn't align here. Maybe let's explore why we're feeling this way so we can adjust ourselves accordingly. It's not something to be suppressed so you can pretend to be happy and keep moving on. It's more than that. I'm also seeing, like I said, there's some anxiety within this group, so you might struggle with what my therapist calls ants, automatic negative thoughts, where there might be a lot of assumptions in certain scenarios. And I think we need to look at what fear versus intuition is for this group, because I do think that your intuition has kind of been guided by a little bit of your ego here for a bit. And that's where anxiety screams, intuition whispers. If you feel it in your chest, it's more than likely a notion of fear. If you feel it in your gut and it feels expansive or restrictive, that's more than likely your intuition guiding you. A lot of times when we have these habits and abilities of pattern recognition, we tend to think that that's our intuition, but it's really just our past experiences having us see a situation that may or may not line up to something we've already experienced. That goes back to fear because that's back with our survival mechanisms. I do think that you guys have a strong intuition, but it's just about learning how to work through this fear and this anxiety and these depressive mindsets that might have plagued you for a while. At least that's a lot of the past energy we're getting into here. I'm going to clean this up real quick, and we're going to get into the present and the energy that we are kind of stepping into. I did want to add before I start playing these cards down too, is with this water energy and this call to connect with water a little bit, that might be some of what helps you cope with your emotions or helps you flow, whether that's like taking a hot bath, maybe a salt bath of some sort, and like just sitting in the water for a while and letting that kind of soak and clear your energy, or just taking a hot shower to kind of like I think the water here is going to inspire not only cleansing but flowing of your emotions. Hell, that might just be like swimming in an open pool or going to the beach or something like that. But I do think connecting with water a little bit more is going to help this group break out of its stagnancy, its anxiety, and kind of find flow a little easier. So let's see where we're at currently with our energy and what we're kind of stepping into now that we're understanding this lesson a little bit more. The lesson that's kind of like understanding that our emotions are not something to be afraid of. Our emotions are not something to suppress. They are messengers. And feeling these more positive feelings, this happiness, it's not a reward for doing the right thing as much as it is like hey, you're on the right path. Good job, my friend. Well, not good job. In understanding this happiness as less of a reward for doing the right thing and more of a indication that you're on the right path, that you're going the right route. I think this group is learning that the more that there's flow inspired within their life, the more that is the right way to go versus like when things feel a little bit more stagnant or stuck, maybe that's a call to look within and see what's not aligning with you right now, or if things feel a little more tumultuous. Let's see. So we have the Queen of Cups, the Magician in reverse, the Queen of Cups. Interesting. The Nine of Wands in reverse. Yeah, I think a lot of you guys are going to connect more with the independent, not opening up to others story. This I can do it all by myself mentality, Six of Cups. And Four of Cups with King of Pentacles in reverse as our bottom of the deck energy here. So starting with the Magician in reverse, clarified by the Six of Cups, we are healing this need to control everything. I feel like a lot of you guys put yourselves in situations where it feels like you recognize the pattern or you recognize how things might turn out because that feels safe for you. And I think there's some inner child healing that's been going on here, that the more that you look into these things that have hurt you, betrayed you, or abandoned you in the past, the more you're going to see this controlling nature as it shows up within your life. I'm not saying that you are necessarily a controlling person, but I am saying that you guys might gravitate more to scenarios where you think that you have your hand in the cookie jar to play with the outcome. And what you're kind of learning within this next area of your life is how to flow a little bit more. I think that by finding this flow within yourself, your emotions, and in your psyche, you will be a lot more determined and adamant to refuse what doesn't serve you. I think you might have been feeling this kind of apathy recently because you haven't been getting the options that you think align with who you truly want to be within your life, whether that be career options, romantic options, social options, whatever the case may be. There's a specific venue, I feel like, in your life that you're trying to call more opportunity. And I feel like for a while it hasn't really connected with you because you haven't been in this flow state, this true to yourself kind of state, true to your power. You were kind of calling in options of chaos or options that kind of reflected past patterns and behaviors because that was the energy that you were reflecting. And I think that there might be this kind of call here that when you've given up is when the option that you desire is going to be presented to you, if that makes sense. With this Nine of Wands in reverse, clarified by this King of Pentacles in reverse, I think you guys are very anxious about opening up and letting people see more of you and who you truly are. And I think it's about working through that anxiety and understanding that even if somebody came out and betrayed you or abandoned you, how many times before have you seen yourself pick yourself back up from those scenarios? How strong have you become already? There's also this, like, instability with this group, which I think ties in with that anxiety here. And I know that I see that might be part of the reason of what holds you back from opening up to other people more. Or inversely, if some of you guys are a little bit more codependent, maybe that kind of keeps you from being more stable within your energy, or like keeps you going back to the same groups of people that maybe are not healthy for you. With this 9 looking like a 6 because it's in reverse, I do want to say that this might be with romantic connections or friend, familial connections, just because 6 is such a number of love to me. I think there's this call that, like, when an offer in love, whether romantic, platonic, familial, presents itself within your life, you kind of get in this anxious energy of sorts, overthinking things, almost looking for the red flags in certain situations. Or versely, maybe it turns to obsession for you guys, where you are so gung-ho just about this connection that you forget the rest of your life and the rest of your reality. You know what I mean? Maybe you, like, fall very deeply into these connections that inspire love. And what you're being called is to see this for the lens of what it is. So I'm not saying that you have to go up and try to assess a person before you take them out on a date and, like, look for all the red flags, right? We're not trying to do that. What we're trying to do is, when we are in the moment where we're hanging out with that person, feeling how we're feeling. If all of a sudden some sort of weird unhappiness kind of stems up and we're hanging out with them, taking notice of that rather than suppressing it. We're kind of entering this energy of discernment here, I'm seeing, where, like I said with this 4 of Cups here, you are refusing things that no longer serve you, rather than before when we saw the 9 of Cups over here, they had like a whole stack of cups behind them and they were refusing to let go of them. I'm hearing roster, so maybe some of you guys, this has to do with dating, and like you're big on having a roster of options rather than choosing what actually feels like it's going to work with you, so to speak. But here, now that we have a better handle of our emotions, and we have a better handle of our inner world and understanding of ourselves, we're seeing a little bit easier how you're ready to let go of the cups that no longer serve you, you know, ready to knock off the people of your roster because you want something real to come in. But part of that is having a handle and understanding of self, which I think goes back to learning how to flow better with life, learning what helps you flow, and understanding your inner world deeper rather than trying to escape from these uncomfortable feelings. Which, like I said, I feel like with a lot of this inner child work that you've been doing, you've been getting a lot better at that. I do see you stepping into, or are currently, this Queen of Cups energy. And the Queen of Cups talks about this patient, tranquil, creative, nurturing energy. And I think this is kind of what you are doing for yourself. This seeing yourself in a new light also kind of helps you see the rest of the world in a new light. Understanding that your emotions are not there to trip you up or distract you. I think this is kind of, with the King of Pentacles in reverse, this kind of tells me that you're letting go of this grinding all the time energy, this go, go, go energy. And you're learning how to smell the roses, appreciate life as it is. There's no longer chasing these things that we desire, but a true, comfortable understanding and waiting where we're at. And I do think for something specific that you're trying to call in, I do think for a lot of you guys, this might be some kind of connection. You might, like I said, you might have this time where it feels like, oh my God, I want to give up. This sucks. Nothing is working. None of these connections seem to fit me. None of these options presented are what I want. But it's the moment that you give up and you turn in that the right option is presented to you. Like I said, I'm also seeing here that you guys are just flowing a lot easier with life. I do think that some new coping skills have come in to help you with this depression and anxiety. Maybe some of you guys have started therapy recently or started reading self-help books. Continue on the path that you're on, because I do think that for you guys, the biggest block in your way might just be what you're willing to handle and deal with yourself. I don't like how that sounds when I say it, but it's, I think, kind of the perspective that we're looking at when we're looking at this inner child, right? Because if you're upset and then you start getting pissed off that you're upset, I want you to start thinking about it as like, this is your inner child trying to give you a message. This is your inner teenager trying to give you a message. How can you be upset with this child or this teenager who just needs your guidance and needs your help and just needs you to listen? It's a lot easier to listen to ourselves when we think of it in terms of like the innocent little one that is within us, right? Rather than trying to steamroll over the fact of, I'm an adult now, I should behave better, or I should do better, or I should know better. This is everybody's first time living. Take it as it comes. Don't beat yourself up too much. Remember that shame keeps you stuck. So instead of shaming yourself, finding a new way to look at the lens of this situation or to nurture yourself a little bit easier. And like I said, I do think that you are embodying a lot of this energy now. It's just remembering to continue to implement that within your life and letting your walls down a little bit. Because if you let your walls down and people leave, those were not the right people for you. And by integrating more of who you are, by letting your walls down a little bit, by letting the people in, you're going to allow the right people to come in. You know, when we're in this energy of trying to be something that we're not, we're going to garner in options for that version of ourselves, not the ones that truly align with who we are. I'm going to say one more time, pay attention to your dreams. I do think that there is something important there for you. And when working with your intuition, make sure to conquer these thoughts of anxiety and these automatic depressed thoughts before letting them kind of run the whole show, if that makes sense. I think dolphins are going to be a certain symbol or sign for you specifically when it comes to this, so pay attention to that as you will. They could also be a call to add more play and more fun within your life, because like I said, we are letting go of this grind energy, and we are stepping more into the security of who we are, knowing that we don't need monetary or we don't need to produce work in order to be worthy of the things that we want. But I do think that's pretty much all I have for you today, so thank you for staying for the reading. If you are interested in booking a personal reading with me, please check out the link in the description below. Check out my website. I would love to work with you, but if nothing else, love and light, my friend. Thank you for staying.